Go to downtown Toronto right now. Charlie Angus standing by. So Charlie, thanks for joining us today. What made you decide to throw your hat in the ring?
I've been talking to people across the country who've been asking me to get active in the New Democratic Party race. What I'm hearing from a lot of people is they believe Ottawa doesn't really reflect their reality. We hear the Prime Minister talk about the middle class all the time, but if you get out and talk to people in rural communities or in downtown Toronto, the middle class is now a modern working class, white collar and blue collar, working short contract jobs, burdened down with student debt, unable to buy homes in the communities they grew up in. So we got to start putting some of that on the table. And the other reason I really thought it important to run is with the Trump election, politics around the world is being plunged into a period of real instability. And we need a really strong voice for the New Democratic Party to offer a positive, forward-looking path that brings people together rather than plays to this very corrosive politics of division.
Let me get back to that in a second. I do want to touch on a point about where the party is right now, though, because, you know, in the last election, a lot of party faithful criticized the NDP, their own party, for moving too far to the center, not really being loyal to its left-leaning roots. Where do you think the party has to be to reflect Canadians' concerns?
Well, I think one of the real problems that we had in the last election, we started with an incredible team of candidates that we never had before. Our ground game was great, but I don't think we really were able to talk to people who needed to hear us. We were so nuanced, we were talking within a very professional political bubble, and that doesn't cut it anymore. So I don't know whether it's like center or left. It's about getting real, about talking about real issues in a real way without political spin, to re-engage a lot of people who across the political spectrum are tuning out because they don't believe politicians speak to them. So I think it's a real opportunity for us to get out there and start that conversation.
Well, you say neither necessarily center or left, but you have, and just even in your first answer, warned people about what you described in your announcement as the radical right that's emerging. So describe what that radical right is. Describe what people have to be concerned about with that radical right.
Well, we've seen what the Trump administration is doing, the politics of division. We see it with the Conservative Party race, whether they don't know whether they want to be reality TV or pressing dog whistle buttons to try and get attention. Equally dangerous, I think, is the politics of smugness. We hear from the Prime Minister politics by image and spin, but what we do need to do for us on the left is talk about the real issues that matter to people, what people are feeling at the ground level. And that's the role of the New Democratic Party. So I'm certainly excited about the opportunity. I come from blue-collar, working-class communities, and I'm also equally comfortable right here in downtown Toronto in a historic bar talking to artists. And our strength as a party is bringing those two groups, the creative class, the artists, the urban people, with blue-collar and the new working class, which is white-collar and blue-collar, and bringing us together.
Now, even in your own party, you have this debate going on right now, in part over what's been called the Leaf Manifesto, this idea of creating a harder opposition to the use of fossil fuels. Where do you stand on the Leaf Manifesto?
What I think is really important for us to talk about is that the need to find an equilibrium between the economy and the environment. It's not an NDP problem. It's the issue for our nation and the issue for the planet at this time. The good thing about the NDP is that we actually have within our tent the people working in natural resources, and we have the environmentalists. So we have to have that conversation. One of our problems is can we have a mature conversation about it? Number one, we're not throwing a generation of workers under the bus to make a political point. I mean, only Margaret Thatcher did that. But also, we have international obligations to get serious about the reduction of greenhouse targets. And we have seen the Prime Minister take no steps. So this is an ongoing conversation. It's sometimes not an easy conversation, but it can be done. And the focus needs to be, how do we transition our economy to a true 21st century economy that we're bringing people along and not leaving sectors behind?
Now, thanks to Tom Mulcair, certainly the NDP built greater traction in Quebec, also thanks to Jack Layton building greater traction in Quebec. How do you keep Quebec as part of the NDP fold if you are coming from Northern Ontario?
Well, I actually live about 15 kilometers from the Quebec border. I represent a region that's largely francophone. I know the families in Abitibi-Témiscamingue in Quebec. I speak French with them all the time. What I understand about Quebec are their values. Their values to be respected as to who they are, their culture, their identity, and their progressive politics. We have a really strong Quebec caucus. We have a strong Quebec base. And I'll be going into Montreal in 2 weeks to participate in my first debate in Quebec, and I'm looking forward to it.
Now, as we said, you're now one of 2 candidates running for the NDP leadership. Do you think you'll be facing more contenders?
I'm really looking forward to Guy Caron, our former finance critic, putting his name in the race. I have enormous respect for Guy. I'm hoping that other candidates may put their name forward soon, but this is a very, very long race, and there's reasons that candidates held back because of the enormous cost and organizing. I put my team together. We've got teams all across the country, so we're ready to rock and roll, and I'm hoping that we have a really good, positive debate. It's not going to be a fractious debate because at the end of the day, I want to be part of a party that comes together and brings us together to get the best ideas. And I'm not going to have all the best ideas. So I'm hoping the other candidates, we can work together and we're going to build a better progressive movement for this country.